You know, whether you're in a quiet concert hall, a massive stadium, a smoky jazz club, or a fiery flamenco performance, there is one instrument you are almost guaranteed to see: the guitar. It's everywhere, so common we kind of take it for granted. But its shape, its sound, its very existence, well, that's a story of centuries of problem solving.
And that brings us to the big question, right? Why isn't there just one type of guitar? I mean, why do we have classicals and electrics and flamenco guitars and a million other variations? It seems super complicated, but the answer, well, it's actually pretty simple.
And there it is. That's the key. The history of the guitar isn't some straight, boring line. Nope, it's more like a branching tree of pure innovation. Every new design we're going to talk about was created to solve a very specific musical problem. So, let's start at the beginning, back when the biggest challenge was just being heard. Okay, so first up, the concert guitar. Our story really kicks off with this fundamental challenge. How do you take a personal, intimate instrument and make it ready for the big stage?
So the modern guitar's ancestor is this beautiful instrument from 16th century Spain, the vihuela. And you can see the family resemblance, right? It had 6 pairs of strings, but it had one massive flaw. For anyone who wanted to be a performer, it was just too quiet. It was absolutely perfect for a small, private room, but if you put it in a growing concert hall, its delicate sound just vanished.
So this was the central puzzle for luthiers. That's a fancy word for guitar makers back in the 19th century. How do you engineer more volume, more power, without wrecking the instrument's beautiful tone? The answer, it turns out, was literally hidden inside the box. And the brilliant solution was something called fan bracing. Some genius luthier figured out that by gluing these thin wooden struts to the underside of the guitar's top in a fan shape, you could make the top stronger and thinner. And a thinner top vibrates more freely. And what does more vibration mean? More sound, more volume. This was a total revolution in acoustic engineering.
And the man who absolutely perfected this design was the Spanish luthier Antonio de Torres Jurado. He's really the hero of this part of the story. He made the guitar's body bigger, and he mastered that fan bracing, basically creating the blueprint for the modern classical guitar we know today. He gave it a voice powerful enough for the concert hall.
But here's where it gets interesting. At the exact same time, in the very same country, a completely different musical world needed a guitar that could do the exact opposite of delicate projection. It needed a guitar that could literally fight to be heard.
And this just shows you everything you need to know about how different needs create different instruments. The classical guitar needed that warm, delicate projection. The flamenco guitar, it needed raw, percussive, almost violent power to cut through the sound of these incredibly powerful singers and the furious footwork of the dancers. So it was built with lighter woods, like cypress, to get a brighter, punchier sound. But here's the biggest surprise of all. Who is key in developing both of these guitars? The same guy, Antonio de Torres Jurado. Mind-blowing, right?
And you can see how the design directly served the music. That bright, punchy tone was perfect for these rapid, rhythmic strums called rasgueado, and players could even use the body of the guitar itself as a drum, a technique called golpe, adding this whole other layer of rhythm. The guitar wasn't just a string instrument anymore, it was also a percussion instrument. But the evolution didn't stop with volume or power. Next, musicians started asking for, well, more notes.
Okay, so we've solved for volume and we've solved for power. But what about the notes themselves? See, some musicians just wanted more of them, while others, they wanted entirely new ones.
So imagine you're a solo performer back in the 18th or 19th century. This was a really practical problem. You want a richer, fuller sound with these deep, resonant bass notes. But hey, you can't afford to bring a bass player with you to every single gig in some fancy private salon. What do?
The answer was this magnificent, wild-looking instrument, the harp guitar. By adding a whole set of extra, unfretted bass strings, these floating strings, a single musician could basically accompany themselves. It created a sound as full as 2 instruments. Just an ingenious, all-in-one solution for the working musician. Okay, now here's where things get really fascinating. Western music is pretty much built on a 12-tone scale. You know, the notes you see on a piano. But tons of musical traditions from all over the world use what are called microtones, the notes that live in the cracks between our standard notes. So how could a fretted guitar ever play those? Well, the solution goes all the way back to 1829 with the first known enharmonic guitar. By creating a system of movable or adjustable frets, musicians could finally retune the guitar on the fly. This totally opened it up to entirely new scales and sounds from way outside the Western tradition. It was literally a key to unlocking a whole new world of music. So all of these incredible innovations were acoustic. But in the 20th century, a new force, electricity, was about to pose the biggest challenge yet and create the most radical solution in the guitar's entire history. So by the 1930s, music was just getting louder. You had these huge big bands, and a hollow body acoustic guitar was just completely drowned out. The obvious solution was, hey, let's put a microphone on it. But that created a new, absolutely horrible problem, the shrieking, howling feedback loop, because the hollow body would just vibrate uncontrollably with the amplified sound.
The first real step was this thing called the frying pan in the 1930s. It was basically a solid piece of aluminum with a pickup that turned string vibrations right into an electrical signal. But the true game changer, the one that changed everything, came in the 50s. Leo Fender perfected the idea. He realized if you get rid of the hollow body entirely, you get rid of the feedback. His solid body design could be turned up as loud as you could possibly want, and that right there paved the way for the distorted, powerful sound of rock and roll.
So when you look back at all of this, you start to see that every single guitar we know and love is like a trophy. It's a testament to a problem that was brilliantly solved.
Think about it. The classical guitar, it solved for projection. The flamenco guitar solved for raw percussive power. The harp guitar solved for a wider tonal range on a budget. The microtonal guitar solved for entirely new tuning systems. And the electric, well, the electric solved for pure, glorious, unadulterated volume. Each one is a direct response to a real musical need.
The guitar isn't just a static object, some fixed thing. It's more like a living document of our changing musical tastes and our wildest technological ambitions. It really does reflect the culture that plays it.
And you know, that really is the instrument's true legacy. It is a master of adaptation. It is constantly reinventing itself to make the music that we, the listeners and the players, demand of it. And that just leaves us with one final thought. As our technology and our music keep evolving, you can bet the guitar will be asked to solve new problems, to create sounds no one has ever heard before. So the only real question left is, what will it need to become next?